So it was a $1.4 trillion spending plan that was approved yesterday. It did avoid a government shutdown, but when we look at those 12 spending bills that have been passed in the House and are expected to be signed by the president, they include a lot of different things: funding for the border wall, repealing Obamacare taxes. And that today is what we're going to focus on, because our next guest says striking down Obamacare could actually open up a path to better health care. Tom Price is with us, the former Health and Human Services Secretary in the early days of the Trump administration and in Congress for many years before that. Sir, thank you for coming on, and tell us what you mean by that, because that is a part of this plan that maybe doesn't get talked about, because we talk so much about, hey, we avoided the government shutting down. But on health care, where are we going?
Well, as your viewers will recall, when Obamacare was taken to the Supreme Court in 2012, the Chief Justice, Justice Roberts, decided that it would stand as constitutional muster because there was a tax in it, or a penalty.
Right.
Well, almost 2 years ago now, in December of 2017, that penalty was taken away. Consequently, 20 attorneys general from across the country have sued to say, because that tax no longer exists, then the whole bill, the whole law should come tumbling down. There was a judge in the Fifth Circuit that agreed with that. That's now in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and that decision is likely to come out relatively soon, if they agree with the lower court judge, then they will say that the law ought to go away. Now, some of our friends on the other side of the aisle have been demagoguing that and fear-mongering and saying if that happens, then millions of individuals will lose their health coverage.
Right.
In fact, that's not the case.
Yeah, you wrote about that in USA Today, and this op-ed. I'm going to stop there and have you explain your position on that for a moment, because you're right. People say, well, if the ruling goes a certain way, forget it. Health care coverage for millions of people goes away. But you contend quite strongly that that will not happen. What will actually happen?
What will actually happen is that both sides have agreed that neither of them wants that to happen before the Supreme Court decides. So whoever loses that, the appeal will go to the Supreme Court. Okay. And as you well know, and your viewers well know, that'll take a long time. In fact, the first time that I think that the Supreme Court could weigh in on a final opinion will be sometime in the spring to early summer of 2021.
So your point is that, health care coverage could, potentially could go away, just not anytime soon. This is not a problem we're going to have to deal with in the very near future, and certainly till after the next presidential election.
Well, the time allows then appropriate bipartisan positive reform, and that's what I've been working on with a number of folks, including a group called Job Creators Network Foundation and Physicians for Reform.
Let's talk about that in the minute or so we have left. As you know, the health care in the last election, in the midterm election of 2018, ended up being a political issue that benefited many Democrats in the race. So what will happen next time as these conversations are going on? Republicans have been criticized by others who say, well, they really, for all the talk about getting rid of Obamacare, they've been unable to come up with their own plan that people can get behind and get excited about. You say you're working on it. What does that look like, and how might the 2020 conversation be different than 2018 in the midterms? Well,
Republicans certainly recognize that they need a plan, and this is very exciting because for the first time ever, Job Creators Network Foundation has actually gone to people, thousands of voters, and said, not do you like this or do you like that, but what do you want to see in your health coverage plan? And they've compiled all of this data. It's market research data that is incredibly innovative. And the people have told job creators, what it is that they want to see. And there are 7 specific parameters that increase choice, decrease costs, increase quality, allow for greater expansiveness of opportunity for the choices in the kind of plans that people want, preserving the physician-patient relationship, protecting pre-existing illnesses, ending the practice of defensive medicine. All of those things as a constellation called Health Care for You, personalized medicine, actually has greater support than Medicare for All, because people want it to be patient-centered, not Washington-centered.
All right, and for all the talk today, of course, about impeachment, this may end up being the big issue again in the 2020 election. So we'll see. We're going to follow it very closely.
Very likely, very likely.
And Tom Price, good to see you. Thank you for coming on,
Thanks so much.